What happens when someone spends decades studying stress, sleep, focus, and the brain itself, only to realize that most of us have been trying to solve performance the wrong way around? Dr. Patrick Porter has built his life around that question. He's the founder of BrainTap and a longtime pioneer in brainwave entrainment and brain fitness, with more than 3 decades in the personal improvement field. His work sits at the intersection of neuroscience, psychology, technology, and human performance, helping people rethink what it really takes to feel calm, think clearly, and perform at a high level. But what makes Dr. Porter interesting is not just the science, it's the obsession behind it. He spent years asking a deeper question that most high achievers avoid. If your brain is the operating system behind every decision, every emotion, every breakthrough, why do so few people train it with intention? He's an award-winning author, educator, consultant, and entrepreneur who's helped millions through his products and services, and in 2024 received a Conscious Award in Health and Wellness for his contributions to brain health. This is a conversation about stress, identity, reinvention, and what becomes possible when you stop treating your mind like something to manage and start treating it like something to master. And before we start this episode, a quick word from our sponsor, Deep Wealth, and the 90-day Deep Wealth Mastery Program. Here's Jane, a graduate, who says, and I quote, "The Deep Wealth Mastery Program prevented me from making what would have been one of the biggest mistakes of my career. I almost signed on the dotted line with an unsolicited offer that I now realize would have shortchanged my hard work and my future had I accepted that offer. Deep Wealth Mastery has tilted the playing field to my advantage." Or how about Lynn? Wow, he gets right to the point, and I quote, "Deep Wealth Mastery is one of the best investments ever made because you'll get an ROI of 100 times that. Anyone who doesn't go through this will lose millions." And as you're listening to these testimonials, are you wondering if you have the time? Are you even thinking that you've got this covered? You have the advisors or people in your network? Well, I got to tell you, these myths, they're often behind the 90% failure rate for liquidity events. Think about it. You have one chance to get it right for your financial freedom. You really want to make it count. And when it comes to time, let's hear what William has to say. We just got in this testimonial. William says, and I quote, "I didn't have the time for Deep Wealth Mastery, but I made the time and I'm glad I did. What I learned goes far beyond any other executive program or coach I've experienced." So what do you think? As I hear that, that's exactly what gets me out of bed every day. That's my mission. That's the team's mission here at Deep Wealth, to literally change the social fabric of society, one business owner at a time, one liquidity event at a time. And my Deep Wealth Nation, what I want you to know, the Deep Wealth Mastery Program, it isn't theory. It's from the trenches. It's the only one based on a 9-figure deal. And that deal, that was my deal. You know my story. I said no to a 7-figure offer. I created a system that later on, myself and my business partners, we said yes to a different buyer, a different offer, a 9-figure deal. That's what we now call the Deep Wealth Mastery Program, or the Scale for Ultimate Sales system. It's built by business owners for business owners. So if you're interested in growing your profits, for preparing for a future liquidity event, and that may be 2 years away, it could be 22 years away, whatever the time may be, you want to do this now, and you want to optimize your post-exit life. Deep Wealth Mastery is for you. To get started, email success@deepwealth.com. Again, that's success, SUCCESS, at deepwealth.com. You'll receive all the information about the Deep Wealth Mastery Program, or better yet, why not hop on a complimentary strategy call? We'll go through exactly where your business is today and what's standing between you and your financial independence and your dreams. So that's where you want to be. You want to be with other successful business owners, entrepreneurs, and founders just like you. They're looking to grow their businesses, create market disruptions, and unlock their financial freedom to get what they deserve. And whether you've been in business for 3 years, 40 years, you're a startup, you're in manufacturing, you're in high tech, low tech, whatever the case may be, come on in and network with other business owners. It's a safe space. It's a confidential space with business owners, with businesses just like you, because they all want to lock in their financial freedom and enjoy both success and fulfillment. So again, the 90-day Deep Wealth Mastery Program, it has your name on it. All you need to do is take the next step. Please send an email to success@deepwealth.com. Deep Wealth Nation, welcome to another episode of the Deep Wealth Podcast. Well, Deep Wealth Nation, when it comes to your mental health, when it comes to your insights, your energy, your clarity, your focus, even your strategy, both in business and life, how are you on that? Has it gotten better? Has it gotten worse? And for most of you, you're probably saying, yeah, Jeffrey, it hasn't been what it used to be. It's actually getting on the worse side. What do I do? Where do I begin? All terrific questions. You heard the official introduction. We have a terrific guest in the House of Deep Wealth. It's a fellow founder, a post-exit entrepreneur, a scientist, someone who is all into mental health and the brain and the science behind that. So Patrick, I'm going to put a plug in it right there. Welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast. It's an absolute pleasure, delight to have you with us. There's always a story behind the story. What is your story, Patrick? What got you from where you were to where you are today?
Yeah, thank you, Jeffrey. Yeah, what got me here was my dad was a chronic alcoholic. So if you can imagine, I'm a big one on we learn our superpowers from our biggest default network of faults that happen. I was a big troublemaker. My dad went to a seminar called the Silva Method. He learned to relax. And when he learned to relax, he changed his life and he went back to school, became a psychologist. I was just a kid at 12. He started doing seminars around Michigan. And every other weekend, I was helping him with training groups with meditation relaxation. Well, later, as God would have it, he put me in a situation where I became the lead researcher for a group called Light and Sound Research. Back in 1986, we invented technology that at the Consumer Electronics Show got the new gadget of the year. But imagine TVs arriving in Africa 100 years ago. They wouldn't know what to do with it. That's what happened to our technology. We got these big awards, but we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have downloads, but we were training people's brains. So my background, psychology, Christian psychology. So I was working with clients. Their biggest issue wasn't what they thought it was. It was their nervous system was in a state of sympathetic overdrive. When you're in sympathetic overdrive, that means that your frontal lobe loses blood flow, your amygdala takes over, and you make decisions based on your primitive brain. So most entrepreneurs are in a state of stress because they take out the garbage, they make the payroll, their HR department, their marketing, their sales, until they get to a point where they're not. And those that make it through that crucible, they become successful. So, but it's really about de-stressing. So my whole life has been that way. This equipment was so hard to explain to people. I started a franchise company. We ended up with 108 locations. I was in every major magazine you can think about because I started a whole new industry. So not only a new business, but a new industry. Now that industry, 10 years ago, actually, I wasn't able to get into a neurological conference after I sold that company. I wanted to train doctors, medical doctors, chiropractors, neurological, and they said, what you have is a toy, it won't work. So 2 years ago, I got a Lifetime Achievement Award from that same group because it's not a toy. Your brain can learn in ways that you don't even know. And most people are far more capable than they ever dreamed about, but they're not using technology that's available today or not using foods like nutrition. There's certain nutrition you can do, and it's simple. You probably have in your cupboards right now. You have to do physical fitness. Right now, our lifestyle is meant to cause our brain to stress, get anxiety. We need to have some kind of brain fitness protocol. And I'm going to share with you some studies we've done with groups like Microsoft and Google and mass studies that we did, which shows that what I'm going to show you today, they did at 2:00 in the afternoon. Now, why 2:00 in the afternoon? Every entrepreneur listening to this probably says, at 2:00, that's when I have my coffee break. I have my candy bar. I do something to stimulate my brain. That's because your nervous system reboots at 2:00. Your temperature drops 2 degrees. You need a nap, but we don't want to take a nap. We want to go after the goal. We want to go after achievement. But what I showed at Google and Microsoft was if you take a 20-minute brain fitness nap using the technology we'll talk about, they actually got 26% more work done that day, which meant they got a day and a quarter more work done by taking a 20-minute break. So it's kind of like Stephen Covey when he says, hey, sees those guys chopping down the tree, says, hey, why don't you stop and sharpen the saw? They said, we can't, we're too busy. Most entrepreneurs are too busy. They think that they're doing something in the afternoon. And we've actually showed it in multiple studies now that you actually get about almost 50% less work done after 2:00, no matter who you are, because your brain doesn't have the cortisol it needs, the dopamine and the norepinephrine, which is triggered by some of the strategies we're going to share today.
And Patrick, what's interesting as you're talking about that, as we look around the world, not so much in North America, because we tend to go and ignore everything else, but in different cultures, you have in the Mexican culture, as an example, or Spanish culture, they have the siesta. And wouldn't you know, it is right around that 2:00 time. Or maybe some entrepreneurs are going for the coffee. Other entrepreneurs are just tired. They're exhausted. How am I going to get through the rest of the day? So it's interesting of what's going on with that. Deep Health Nation, go to the show notes. In the show notes, everything is going to be there, including links to Patrick's book, his latest one, Brain Fitness Blueprint, Integrating Ancient Wisdom and Modern Technologies for Peak Performance. And you can check out the other books as well. Pick that up. But why don't we jump right in there and we can talk about what's there, and then we can fill in the gaps and the foundation and everything else, because you have BrainTap, revolutionary, I'm going to call it a scientific device, not a gadget, in terms of what's there. So why don't you walk Deep Health Nation, if you've never heard of the BrainTap before, the science behind it, what exactly it's doing, and would love for you to integrate also what you've done with your background. I know with NLP and with your Christian belief and being a man of God and also ancient culture. It's all rolled into one in an incredibly unique wrap up of technology, God, spirituality, psychology. So what's going on with BrainTap?
Sure. Let's go back in time for a moment. Imagine you're a 12-year-old, you're a troublemaker like I was, and your dad just gets his brain fixed. He figures out that he's not drinking to get drunk. That's the problem most people have with addiction. They think the person's doing it to get high. They're doing it to get balanced. My dad found out relaxation works, so he changed his parenting style. My dad would tell us, if we got in trouble, he says, go over to my bookshelf, and he had all these self-help books. He said, grab a book off the shelf, read a chapter, and tell me how you're going to apply that in your life. Then you can go play. And so at first I was just joking, I was just pretending, but I kept pulling a book off the shelf called As a Man Thinketh. And that book, after about 10 or 15 times of pulling it off the shelf, because it was the smallest book, I was trying to get out of something and just read it. And that book changed the way I perceive the world, because every one of us has a power within us that's far greater than any power in the world around us. But if we don't use it because we're in stress, anxiety, or we think the world is happening to us, there's a difference. If you're an entrepreneur that thinks the world happens to you, you don't know if you're going to win unless you look at the stock market or you look at the weather, all these things. These things are out of our control. We can't control them, but what we can control is what happens through us. And so when you think about that power that's greater than you, that's there to support you and work with you, even in Stoicism, they called it that you're paranoid, but you're opposite of that. The world is working with you, through you, to help you through, but you're not recognizing the signs. So in my life, I realized God wasn't out to get me. I woke up every morning, God's going to make my life miserable. I would actually plan for my time in my bedroom when I would buy models, I would buy different things because I knew I was going to get in trouble. And when I was in my room, I wanted something to do. Then I realized I'm putting a lot of effort into planning my demise. Why don't I spend that same time, energy, and effort into my success? And so I had to come out and give my dad I had to give him goals, right? So I said, I'm going to be captain of the football team because I knew that would make my dad mad, really excited. I was a 98-pound weakling. He said, faith without works is dead. And this is what I say today to people. You don't get what you intend in life. You get what you rehearse. And I call behaviors now rituals, not habits. So we'll talk a little bit about that later, because every entrepreneur listening to this has rituals they do every day. And if they don't do those rituals, they don't feel right. And some of those rituals are serving you, some of them are not. In my life, I had to start running. I had to start lifting weights. Well, this is long story short, I became captain of all three sports. I got a track scholarship and I got 2 PhDs. I'm not the dumb kid who got held back in second grade. I changed my DNA. And we could talk a little bit more about that too, because I know I listened to one of your podcasts, they're talking about DNA. We do have DNA that does interfere or interact with life. It's a viscous material. If I could take yours, Jeffrey, and staple to the floor, it would reach to Pluto. MIT has proven that DNA actually absorbs codes from the universe and broadcasts them through your body. So this is why it's so important that we work with something called the circadian rhythm. As an entrepreneur, you need to know when is your best time to make your best decisions. When is your time to just say, pause, break, and breathe? When is it the best time for you to sleep? And I'll go over some of those with you. But in what happened to me through the journey and finding this out was, it was tested in the real world. And one of the books that isn't published yet that I'm going to publish is White Collar Psychopaths, because as an entrepreneur, you are the target now. When I went to the FBI after being scammed for $1 million, they said, they don't have any resources we can go after, so it's not worth our time. They said now the biggest scammers are going after businesses because you might invest $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 into a marketing campaign and it doesn't work. And you go, oh, it didn't work. No, you were scammed. So you need to understand and really have in place what you really want of those things. And sometimes entrepreneurs go, I'm tired of this. I don't have energy. I need somebody to do this for me. One thing is, you are the smartest person about your business. But I'm going to give you a little tip here. When you were born, Jeffrey, and everyone listening, You were the smartest you're ever going to be when you were born. Your brain had 18.1 volts. You had a 100 billion neural bit process. God imbued you with the intelligence and creativity to absorb the world around you and learn a language. If you ever had children, you go, they went from babbling nothing to little adults by 4 or 5 years old. At 7 years old, you started making your own decisions. That's why the Catholic Church, the Benedictine monks say, give me a child to their 7, I'll give you a Catholic for life, because you were formatted. So this formatting, they say we can't change that formatting. I'm here to tell you that's a lie. Whatever you've been told about your past, whatever you want in the future, it's within your reach right now because opportunity is everywhere. But most entrepreneurs have something called nose blindness. Now, this isn't something we use in psychology. When somebody lives next to a dump and you go, how can you live here, man? This smells so bad. And they go, I don't smell it. Or you live near an airport and they go, how can you think that airplane? I don't hear the airplanes, because our brain is super good about filtering out reality. So if you think you can, when Henry Ford said that, or you think you can't, you're right. What we're saying is our DNA, our biology, even down to the mitochondria in our body, upregulates when we look at life as a challenge rather than a threat. So as an entrepreneur, you signed up for this. And my wife has a really neat t-shirt. It says, God only gives you what you can handle. And then underneath it says, God must think I'm a badass. When you're an entrepreneur, you got to be a badass. You should wake up with total energy. You should be excited. It's a new day at school. It's a new day. Nothing is the same. Hopefully you got a good night's sleep. And we're going to talk about that, because as an entrepreneur, your superpowers all get incubated during sleep.
Absolutely love all of that, Patrick. Oh my goodness, so much there to unpack. And Deep Health Nation, how I'd like you to think about this, because we may cover some topics that have you feel uncomfortable. Or Jeffrey, you know what? If it's not a complicated spreadsheet with a complicated formula, it doesn't exist. We're going to challenge some of those beliefs and some of those theories. How I want you to think about this, Deep Health Nation, is everything we're talking about is to maximize your success. We're going to tune into the world's favorite radio station, WII.FM, the What's in It For Me radio station. And the What's in It For Me is actually for you, Deep Health Nation. So everything that we're talking about is for you. And just as a side note, Deep Health Nation, Patrick has mentioned God a number of times. I'm a man of God. Patrick's a man of God. If God is not your thing, or maybe it's the universe, or maybe it's spirituality, whatever it is, what's interesting about this is, firstly, don't shut us down. Don't shut us off. Keep an open mind. Keep on listening. Patrick, what's fascinating is that science, and I'm not a religious person. I don't believe in religion myself personally, but what's interesting is science and we'll call it spirituality are now becoming one. Whether it's the quantum field or the field, whatever you like to call it, it's really one and the same. And it's just been incredible in terms of what's there. So you shared a number of things. Let's go back to the very early things that you said, rituals, not habits, and then leveraging that into changing with our DNA. So what's going on there? Let's start at the basics with that.
Let's start with the first ritual most entrepreneurs have. They get up in the morning, they're tired, they're groggy, they didn't get a night's sleep because they didn't do a sleep protocol before they went to bed. Their ritual was maybe reading or watching TV or whatever. The worst thing you can do is watch the news 2 hours before sleep. If you don't feel good, you don't feel happy, just turn on the news. You'll be miserable in 5 minutes. And because the last 2 hours before you go to sleep, that's going to influence your dreams. So I always recommend you go around the house, turning off the lights, watch comedy, do something light, do maybe some breath work. And what I recommend you do before you go to sleep, and remember this, I'm not asking you to believe anything I'm saying. This is all science. So you can save religion for Sunday morning. This is all science-based. It is true. When I go to India and I look at the Vedas, and I work with a lot of universities over there that are MIT caliber, we have validated all the ancient traditions with modern technology. We have modern technology to do something used to take them 30 years. We can do it now in an afternoon. So we're faster, quicker, and better at it, which means to get somebody into a meditative state. When you look at a guru, I took a guru up on stage. I measured his brain on EEG. I let everybody see it. I said, anybody in the room never meditate because we don't have time to meditate. I said, and so a person volunteered. Within 20 minutes, they had the same brain profile as that guru. And I still remember Varun, Dr. Varun from AIMS Bhopal, which is one of the major universities in India. He said, you're cheating. I said, Varun, have you ever meditated to a candle? He said, oh, yeah, all the time. I said, that candle is technology. It's just old technology. That candle flickers at 10 hertz frequency. Every cell of your body has a mirror neuron. And that mirror neuron is evaluating your environment, not only rebraiding your DNA every 40 seconds, but also up-regulating the system if you look at it as a threat or a challenge. down-regulating if it's a threat, up-regulating if it's a challenge. Now, there's a reason why when you go on maybe a retreat with your loved one and you're sitting in front of the fire, you get a little frisky and you get a little action. That happens because that 10 cycles actually triggers brainwave activity that triggers acetylcholine, oxytocin, all of the field. There's 54 neurotransmitters. I won't go through all of them, but your brain actually has you in your getting high on your own supply. The problem is if you don't get out of the reactionary mind, where dopamine and cortisol and norepinephrine live, you can't experience that. That's the spreadsheet you're talking about. In the average person we talk to, their brain voltage is now down to 10.1. If it drops below 7 in our studies, which we reversed dementia in 6 weeks, we saw that their voltage went below 7, they had dementia symptoms. If it dropped below 4, they had Alzheimer's. It's an energy equation. And every entrepreneur knows my energy is what I need because you are the asset that drives the business. So that energy starts with the brain, moves down the spine out to the limbs. If you're not energizing your brain on a daily basis, so sleep is really important, and it's something called deep sleep that you need. Imagine, Jeffrey, you're with me in medical school. It's 2014. We're learning all about the lymphatic system, and it stops at the neck. Go to any medical book, it stops at the neck. If you're in Denmark now, you're watching somebody do a sleep study, and this doctor says, wait a minute, what just happened? There was a whole nother system in the body that they didn't know about up to that point. How many cadavers have they opened up? How many times they didn't know we had something called the glial lymphatic system? And basically it only works during level 4 sleep. When it used to be as an entrepreneur, you'd say, I only sleep 6 hours. I only sleep 4 hours. I only sleep 3 hours, whatever it is. That is not good. Sleep is not a luxury. It's a necessity. And during sleep, if you have brain fog, if you're not waking up energized and ready to go, if you need a cup of coffee first thing in the morning, you have a neurological problem. There's no reason. You just slept. Why would you need coffee first thing in the morning? That coffee is actually terrible for you first thing in the morning. And what it does, it crushes that cortisol curve. I recommend you wait 2 hours. What I recommend you do first thing in the morning to supercharge your entrepreneur brain, whatever you do in business, you need large glass of water with salt. Now, not table salt, you need Celtic salt or full spectrum salt. They sell it at your local grocery store, and you need about 20 grinds of it. You are a battery. Your body works on fat and water. And if you don't get enough essential fat, so also first thing in the morning, if you have really good olive oil, not the junk they sell in the grocery stores usually, but you want to like a California blend or something like that, where it's actually, not that it says it's from Italy, because all they do is they drive a boat past Italy and then they stamp it Italy, Italian olive oil. You can test it by seeing if it freezes. If your olive oil freezes, it's not olive oil. But 1 tablespoon of that will reverse your chances of dementia by 40%. And it feeds your brain. So think in terms, what's your greatest asset? Your intelligence. What you do. If you really want to, now that first 2 hours too, we need to exercise, physical exercise, and we need to work our muscles because every muscle is a pharmacy. It's going to give us the energy, the vitality we need. And when you wake up in the morning, all the sugar in your bloodstream is in your muscles. It's ready for action because think about it. 2,000 years ago, we might have been sleeping outside and we're part of the food chain. We got to be ready to run. We should be excited. Now, when you work out, what happens is you train the muscles to use the sugar that is stored. If the first thing you do is a cup of coffee, I'm going to tell you what happens. You drink the coffee, you get energized, you crush the cortisol curve. You have no place for that sugar to go. Zero. So what happens is you have to start creating insulin. Insulin is a fat storage hormone. What it does is it encapsulates the sugar and puts it in the adipose tissue because it knows there's going to be later on this year, next year, whatever, there's going to be a famine and you're going to have to tap into those stores. That never happens because we're going to throw a rock in any direction and hit a supermarket. So that never gets used. And then we create something called insulin resistance. We try to lose weight. When I was featured in People magazine in 2006, we had sent them over 1,000 people that lost half their weight and kept it off for more than 5 years. And I didn't have a diet. You don't need a diet because it's not what you're eating. It's what's eating you. And that stress response is the exact same thing as eating a candy bar. So if you're not handling your stress, you can't lose weight.
Wow. Okay. So much in there. And Deepalt Nation, what I love with what we're hearing, and Deepalt Nation, if you're feeling overwhelmed, not to worry. We're going to give you some answers and some things to do that's going to make it easier for you. But Patrick, what I love what you're doing is, firstly, you're talking about things, most of which are either free to no cost. So sleep It's completely free. And you're right. As entrepreneurs, we've got it all wrong. There's no sleep badge of honor of let's compare how little you slept compared to how little I slept. Yeah, that's a great badge for Alzheimer's or dementia or Parkinson's. Not a great thing to do, which you mentioned. You've mentioned taking some water with, as an example, sea salt or just clean salt that hasn't been processed and isn't polluted and all those other kinds of things. Right. A good quality olive oil. This is not expensive. You're saying we don't have to go into a cave for a year and try to meditate and everything else. So you've given us the basics, the foundation of, okay, let's get a good night of sleep. Let's make sure that we've recharged ourselves upon waking. Hold off on the coffee, have some water. I know for myself, I have just under a liter of water, about two big glasses of water with some sea salt in there first thing upon waking, just to get some things going with that. And you shared why we want to get some movement and some exercise. And depending on the time in the morning when we're waking up, where we're located, perhaps going outside, seeing that sun to get the circadian rhythm going. So we're setting ourselves up for success. In Deep Health Nation, in our upcoming Deep Health Mastery Health program, we talk all about this, how your night of sleep doesn't start when you get into the bed. It starts when you wake up that very morning, what you're doing. So you're setting us up for success. But Patrick, all of that said, sleep. And you've talked about this, people talk about this, we tend to take it for granted. It's our biggest superpower. And I know with what you're doing with the BrainTap, not just for sleep, also throughout the day, these 20-minute sessions that you're talking about, the BrainTap can help clear the way of what would normally take years, decades for some people, or just never for some people, we can do nearly instantaneously with the BrainTap. So talk to us about what's the BrainTap. You shared some of the research that went into it, behind it. There's all kinds of studies that have used the BrainTap. It's been proven, it's been replicated. But someone in Deep Health Nation, they're hearing, okay, BrainTap, meditation. I fail in meditation. I can't do it for more than 30 seconds. I got the monkey mind. Try the different apps. I try the different meditations. I walk out frustrated. What is the BrainTap? What am I doing? What's it all about?
Right. And they're not alone. We've measured 30,000 brains. And before we do the studies, we always get their baseline on their own meditation. Most people, that default network that we have inside our own brain, the Dalai Lama calls it the monkey mind. It goes crazy because 30% of your brain goes dormant without light triggering it. The retinal flashing. So you're wearing something that looks like virtual reality, but the light is tuned to frequencies. So if you and I went to the ocean, we go, wow, we were at the ocean, we're relaxing. That's because bodies of water, or even a waterfall in your office, will stimulate alpha activity because it's 10 hertz. If you and I went to the mountains, we would trigger gamma. Now, what's the difference between the and theta, which also produce something called GABA, which is a precursor to something called DMT. I love it when I get interviewed about psychedelics and people using them. I said, you have your own psychedelics. You have cannabinoid receptors. You have all these things. And we've proven with studies that you can trigger them on your own through deep states of consciousness. Now, each of these brainwaves are like Wi-Fi networks. To give an example, when you're using BrainTap, we put lights in the ears. And people look at the lights in the ears and go, what the hell do you have lights in the ears? Every cell of your body is actually listening. It's not just your ears. Every cell of your body is looking. That's why some of these masters, like these Tai Chi masters and martial artists, seemingly can see without eyes. And you can go on the internet. There's actually a course, and I've been there. They teach kids how to see without their eyes. This is science now. It's not, we are far more, we're like superhumans. If this system is activated, what other internal resources do we have that need to be activated? What we found is that each of these Wi-Fi networks, if you will, these brain waves, are designed to bring us different informations. For instance, if I ask you, Jeffrey, to remember your favorite vacation, it would probably be pretty easy for you. You'd have to sort out all vacations and then figure out the one that's best. But your brain could do that lickety-split because it's stored with energy and emotion. And now you just lit up about 12 places in your brain to do that. Now, bad memories are also stored. But if we can learn to maintenance them, like at night, so a sleep protocol, I'm going to give everybody a sleep protocol so your brain functions better because the negatives start to creep in. And just like a salesperson you might hire, eventually they start to predict how they're supposed to close because they think they know, instead of looking at it with a fresh mind. And every person is different. When you're sleeping, your spinal fluid is supposed to wash over your brain and disconnect all the glia cells. So these glia cells actually form memories, short-term and long-term memories. We don't want those negative experiences in long-term memory. What we want to do is store them as lessons learned. Like the old saying goes, if you don't learn from the past, you're doomed to relive it. That's because the fragment of those memories, your brain is still trying to figure it out. Your brain is a servo mechanism. And one thing I learned in NLP, and I was lucky enough to learn it when Richard Bandler and John Grinder were still together. So I'm a little bit older than probably a few people on this listening to this podcast. In the process of doing that, what they found was you are basically trapped in past programming that doesn't serve you because you've never allowed your brain to do like a defrag on your computer. Everything that's in short-term memory, that's why Deepak Chopra says we have 60,000 word loop in our brain every day. And that same loop was playing 6 months ago. We need to change that loop. If you want a different life, if you want a different computer, you got to upgrade your software. And the nice thing is that we can upgrade our own software. We have the capacity to do that. So as you think about this at night, when I recommend you do a 4-8 breath, and it's really easy. If you're not sleeping well, get in bed after you're done with everything you're going to do in bed, besides sleep. Lay back on your pillow. Nobody needs to know what you're doing. You breathe into the mental count of 4. This is going to trigger your sympathetic system. You might get a little nervous. That's fine. You want to train your brain to offload stress. Then you breathe out slowly to the count of 8. When you do that a few times, pretty soon your body's pretty relaxed. Now you start to put together your success reel. And it's important that you think of yourself as a superstar. You are the main character in your life. And so what I mean by that is any negative thing that happened to you during the day, you make it black and white. You put it behind you. And what lesson could you learn from that? And look at it from the perspective that nobody's out to get you. They're for themselves. They're not out for you. They're for themselves. So you need to be for yourself. And any positive thing that happened, even the smallest things, somebody said hello to you. Hey, you got a great hairdo. Whatever's going on, you make those bright, brilliant, and in color because you're going to train your brain through something called the reticular activating system to notice opportunities and goodness in your life. Life is meant to be enjoyed. So you're going to offload the stress. And then what happens is whatever your biggest problem is, you're going to dream of a solution. And if you can dream of 3 solutions, that's even better because the first solution is basically, it could be an accident. The second solution could be a coincidence and it's a dilemma. What do I choose? But when you get to 3, you start to activate your quantum brain. You start to activate the dream sequence. It says in an infinite field of possibility, what can I do in this moment in time? And guess what? Like all the great inventors in the past, you'll begin to dream of your solutions. And then you have a pad of paper by your bed in the morning. That solution will come to you just as clearly as talking to your business partner, your friend, your family member, whatever it is, because your brain serves you. It becomes a very good slave, but a very bad master. If you just let your brain run its course, it's going to be programmed by those first 7 years of your life. So let's activate that. And BrainTap gives you those. That's just one thing. We have 3,000 sessions. These are all brain trainings that train your brain to do this without you because you're too busy doing what you do. We need the subconscious to take over in a very positive. Most people are on the bus, handcuffed to the back, and Freddy Krueger's driving. So the first thing we need to do is take off the handcuffs, kick Freddy Krueger off, take the bus where you want to go, put the people on the bus that you think should be there, the ones you don't want, kick them off the bus too. You got to be very selfish as an entrepreneur because the people you surround yourself with are actually adding to or taking away from your energy. And there's nothing you can buy back. Time and energy is what makes you successful. So let's start, and you can do that at night. That's when you do your review, and they'll self-select at that point.
And so, Deep Health Nation, as we're talking about this, here's what I want you to think about. And Patrick, I know you subscribe to what I'm about to say, and I'm going to throw some names out there and some classic books. Let's go back to Napoleon Hill. Think and Grow Rich. And Patrick, I know you've talked about this and mentioned this a number of times. So Napoleon Hill, what he basically said was our thoughts are things. And what we think about internally, that's what we manifest externally. But Deep Health Nation, what I want you to think about, let's look at the language that we're using. Yeah, I'm going to just grind it out. I'm going to grit it. I'm going to do the hard work. Yes, that is one way that you can achieve your goals. It's the long way. It's the harder way. With what, Patrick, what you're just sharing with us right now, when we talk about the quantum field, I prefer to call it God and what's wanted for us, whatever your language is, life is meant to be, not without its challenges, but when we're in the zone, when we're in the flow state, it should be with ease and with effortlessness. And our goals, some people call it serendipity or being at the right place at the right time. Or was it luck or was it not? Let's put that off to the side. To your point, Patrick, when we're doing the right things, when we're activating the reticular activation system, you're right, our brain is on the lookout for opportunities. And Deep Health Nation, we've talked about this before on the podcast. You're looking at a red sweater, you love it, you buy the red sweater, you're walking out of the store. Now, the rest of the day, in the next few days, red sweaters everywhere. Was it that magically these red sweaters just appeared everywhere, or were they just always there, but you never noticed them? And so, Patrick, I love what you're talking about with success patterns. When we can train the brain of what it is that we want, it will begin 24/7 to find those solutions. So let me get this straight. Defaultation, imagine now we've got the BrainTap, so we're putting something that covers our eyes. It also covers our ears. And in the ears, in the eyes, we have lights that are going on, we have sounds, we have frequencies. You've talked about the beta frequencies, alpha waves, gamma, theta, delta, the different waves. And there's an app that's controlling all of this. And there's different programs with that. So Patrick, walk us through some of the different programs and what the BrainTap's going to do for us.
Yeah, I was featured in a documentary with Napoleon Hill, and we have the Napoleon Hill series. We took the Napoleon Hill book because reading a book, knowledge isn't power. Knowledge applied is power. So remember what I said earlier, you get what you rehearse in life, not what you intend. So you can rehearse in the space of your mind. It's better to make a mistake in there than out in the real world. It costs a lot of money. In your mind, you can make a ton of mistakes, and every great entrepreneur, every great inventor would rehearse in their mind, even Tesla. When they ran a motor, they did one test with him. He said, build a motor and I'll tell you how much it wears. And they used it for 30 days. He was able to tell them the wear down to the micron because he ran the motor in his mind. That's the way when you really tune your brain, how you can do it. So we have about 14 different business books that I've encoded into like mini series where you train your brain to use them, like thinking big is a principle. There's a whole bunch of them in there, and I'm always adding more because people have read the books and they go, yeah, that's really good. But then they move on to the next thing. And one thing I should say is the best time to read those books or do the mental exercises for entrepreneurs is after you exercise, because you trigger something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factors. I want you all to think about it as miracle grow for the brain. Don't just stop your exercise and run off. When I wrote articles for weightlifting magazines like Muscle and Fitness, I would show them how if you did a 10-minute little meditation after your workout, you actually grew more muscle because the acetylcholine didn't wash out by the stress of getting in your car and driving home from the workout facility. So there's a sequence to everything, and the brain works best in cycles. So as you learn to master your life one day at a time now, we're not asking you to change everything, just change some simple things, change some simple rituals. You'll find that you'll build new rituals that will be just as strong, just as powerful, but they'll get you what you want out of life instead of what you basically keep intending. You just start doing something small, and that creates the arc of change and transformation that you want.
And so, Patrick, when it comes to the BrainTap, what would be two base case scenarios? So one would be the minimum effective dose. And I don't know why this would be the case, because if something can help us get success bigger, better, faster, you want to do it as often as you can. But for the founder saying, look, I don't have a lot of time, I'm busy, what's the minimum amount of times I can use the BrainTap that I can begin to see some benefits? And then the flip side of that is, okay, yeah, sure, you can do that, and there's going to be some benefits. Ideally, though, if I can wave the magic wand, this is how often you're using the BrainTap, and here's what you're doing. Can you give us both base cases?
Yeah. All of our studies are based on 3 times uses a week because your nervous system resets every 72 hours. So whatever you did 72 hours ago, that's who you're showing up at right now. It's not what you did this morning. This morning is really important. And I have the same belief, win the morning, win the day. So when you think about what you did, you're not the sum total of today. You're the sum total of, in fact, MIT actually showed 54 generations are influencing your DNA right now. And the Hopi Indians said 7 generations. So what is it? When you were born with a set of commands and instructions, and you were imbued by God to whatever you are right now. So as you think about it, 3 times a week is probably the minimum. That's to get the results that we're talking about. In all of our studies, and we have 72 different studies, from helping people get off dementia scale to helping students learn better to helping golf teams in Florida win national championships. So in helping Tom Brady, he's probably our biggest sports advocate. So when you think about the people that we've helped, they do it every day and at least once a day. Now, when you first start, we recommend 3 times a day because in the morning you need a brainwave called SMR. And as you get better looking and more in age and all those things happen to you, that's the brainwave that atrophies. So we need to stimulate that in the morning. And so that's a 10-minute session. And we tell people just wake up 10 minutes before your alarm or set your alarm 10 minutes earlier because you're going to wake up with more energy, more vitality. You're going to have the zest for life that you're looking for. In the middle of the afternoon, when you start to feel that psychological low, usually it's around 2 o'clock. It could be 1:30 for you, 2:30, whatever it is. do a reboot session. In the morning, you can do a psychological breath, which is basically breathe in deeply, let it out completely. And you do that until you almost become dizzy. And you've triggered the same neuroactivity that you would with a BrainTap sessions. But you're going to supply them with the trybraintap.com link and they can try it for free. But in the afternoon, you want to do a full reboot. You need to recharge, revitalize. You need to get those stores of cortisol back up there, the norepinephrine, dopamine. So you can attack the afternoon. You can make those best decisions because as an entrepreneur, you don't get a choice usually. Let's put that off to tomorrow when my brain's working better. No, you got to make that decision right now. And then at night, we have delta sessions that get you into that deep sleep faster. And just to give you an idea, it's not time in bed. When we did a study in Australia with coal miners, the average coal miner before we did the study had spent 10 hours a night in bed, but they only got 1 minute of deep sleep. Within 3 weeks, they were sleeping at 70% efficiency, better than 90% of Americans. And they work in the dark, they leave in the dark, they never saw the light of the sun. But we reset their circadian rhythm using the light patterns that we have in the BrainTap, because that's really what it's doing. It's resetting your circadian rhythm because stress disrupts that flow. So 3 times a day is maximum. You don't need to do it more than that because you won't get any neural, but it's different things at different times. In the middle of the day, we recommend box breathing, which is to breathe into the count of 4, hold it to the count of 4, breathe out to the count of 4, hold it out to the count of 4. This is something they train every Navy SEAL. So if you think you're more stressed out than a Navy SEAL going after a battleship, then God help you. And so you can do that at any time though. Let's say you're going into a business meeting and you just sit down in a chair, do the box breathing. It will re-regulate your nervous system. It will up-regulate your DNA. It will have you showing up as your best self. And all that past stuff gets pushed into the background where it belongs.
So, Patrick, what I'm hearing, at least in the beginning, 3 times a day, 10 minutes when you wake up, and then around 2 p.m., perhaps for 20 minutes, and then right before bed, to get ourselves back to where we were when we were first born. You mentioned when we're born, we're perfect and everything is great. And then life happens and things go from there. And then it sounds like once we get to the right place, we're not going to be necessarily as reliant because we're back to where we should be. And you're saying as a minimum 3 times a week, ideally more than that. But we're getting ourselves, just like we're going to the gym. In the early days, it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to be feeling some pain, perhaps. We're building some muscle. We're going to be back at it. But when you look at the people who've been doing this for a while, and they're doing all the right things, they don't have to be there necessarily every day for hours at a time because they built the muscle. They know what they're doing, and the body's responding accordingly. And now I'm thinking of those in Deep Health Nation who are listening to us talk, and they're saying, hey, Patrick, Jeffrey, that's all fine and good. You know what? I'm one of the few. I can do meditation. I do meditation each and every day, and life is great. Patrick, I know you're a modest enough guy that you'd probably say to that person, don't worry about it. You don't need BrainTap. Keep on doing what you're doing. If meditation's working for you, fantastic. God bless you, and may you go on and prosper. That said, where could the BrainTap help where perhaps I'm doing the meditation and it feels good, but perhaps the BrainTap could get me that extra edge?
I would talk about Tom Brady. I mean, if you think about the world's greatest quarterback of all time, why would he use BrainTap? Why would all the peak performers at biohacking use BrainTap? If you go to Dave Asprey's, 4,000, 5,000 people there, 75% of them use BrainTap because they measure the result. They want more peak performance moments. They want to show up as their best self. Mike Tyson has a saying, everyone has a plan till they get hit. What are you doing when you get hit? What I do is I challenge them. I have a piece of technology that I invented too called NeuroCheck. I can measure your nervous system. I don't have to guess. And it's been validated around the world. I can take 5 minutes before and after a meditation. I've only met 2 people out of 30,000 brains. And I've met people that are braggarts. I've met gurus. I've met everyone. They can't do what you can do with technology. It's like I can walk to California from New Bern, North Carolina, or I can get on an airplane. I'd rather get on the airplane. And plus it takes effort. And we have music only sessions. So what I tell them is use the music only sessions, do your own meditation. You're going to get a deeper meditation. You're going to get the neurological benefits, and you don't have to be in your head doing it. We meet them every day at conferences and we hear about it and people saying, I meditate in theta. And I'm telling you, that's hogwash. I've seen too many people. There have been 2 people that we've measured that actually had a practice that actually changed their nervous system. The others actually got worse because their brain was overthinking. This reboot we're talking about 3 times a day is not about your conscious mind. If you could consciously make these changes, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. It's your subconscious that controls 97% of your daily activity. We need to get this information into long-term memory so that you start to think about these things without having to think about them. And then you have a good life.
And so, Patrick, what I'm hearing you say, and you can share with me, Jeffrey, you're on base or off base. Let's look at it from the side of things of everything can be a means to an end. We don't meditate for the sake of meditating. We're meditating to get to a better mental state or to lose that tiredness and get refreshed and recharged. And so from that perspective, if it's a means to an end, why not leverage the technology that we have? It's not harmful. It's actually helping us. And if we can do it perhaps better, more efficiently, faster, well, it's not cheating. It's helping. It'd be like saying to your example, you shouldn't be using a car because that's cheating. You should be walking to the West Coast. It should take 3 months when you can drive, or better yet, why don't you just fly? And if you're on the East Coast, you'll be on the West Coast in 5 hours and call it a day and look at all the time that you saved. So you're leveraging the technology. But what I love with what you've done, and we glossed over it, it's not just science for the sake of science. You took spirituality. You took what ancient wisdom is from the cultures, the eons of wisdom that was there. And you've put this all into one, the psychology with NLP. You've integrated this all into one system. How am I doing with that?
That's it. That's exactly it. I tell people we have a technology problem in the world today. We need a technology that's scalable, that can be taken across the world. We're in 103 countries right now, and it's growing every day. We only have a less than 1% churn on our app. We're the example they use with our credit card processor. They go, what are these people doing? Our average user uses it 27 times a month. So they're getting results. I wouldn't be doing this if it didn't get results. I'd do something else. So it's all about results. You either have excuses or you have results. So this is something that can, and usually it's an energy equation, like I said earlier. If you need energy at any time during the day, this is one thing you can do without it. There's a negative to when you do biologicals like coffee and tea and chocolate and all these things that stimulate. Yeah, they can get you by, and all those supplements you can do. And I'm a big supplement guy. I believe you need to take them. They're not going to be the only answer. And you have to have that movement I talked about. So it's a whole equation. It's not just one thing. Even BrainTap's not just one thing. If you do the other things that I'm sure you're training them to do in your course, then this is just an additive thing that's going to basically let it work a little bit better and faster.
To me, though, what's really jumping off the page here, look, I can eat all the right foods. I can be doing all the right workouts. I can be taking the supplements. But fact of the matter is, if my sleep just isn't there, none of that, it's not none of that, but a lot of that isn't going to show up. So it's an entire system. And what's fascinating about this is from a physiological side of things, from an emotional, a mental, a psychological, you're helping with the sleep, you're helping with the nervous system, you're helping to, hey, let's back off on the stress, get back into the relaxation where the magic happens. Then the other areas in our life are going to be shining and coming through. And you're helping us do this through the technology, through proven science and research that's been done, also with things that have been known for quite some time with the ancient cultures. Let me ask you this, Patrick. A listener coming out of our episode today, they don't have the BrainTap just yet. Yeah, they want to do that. They want to pick up some of the books, get the BrainTap. But what would be one low-hanging fruit someone can do right now before they go into the next phone call, their meeting, or the activity that would help get them to a better place? From all of the research that you've done, from your own experience, from working with other entrepreneurs and founders, what's one action that I could be taking that would really make a difference?
Check your breath. Most people don't breathe. Your breath controls your nervous system. Most people don't breathe right. They hold their breath all the time. Take a few deep breaths. Focus on breathing. Don't worry if you're doing it right. You can't breathe wrong. And start breathing out twice as much as you're breathing in. That will re-regulate your nervous system, get you refocused, and you can do it at any time, cost you nothing. And as we wrap up, the main thing is that you've got to be intentional about your brain care. You can't let it go to default, because the worst thing is we have a sick care industry and we have a healthcare industry. Most people confuse the two. When you go to the doctor, he might say, you're not bad enough yet. Go get worse. We'll fix you. You want to never see the doctor. You want to stay healthy and well. So you want to stay in the healthcare division, not in the sick care division. So if your brain's working well now, let's keep it running right. It's a lot easier to stay in shape than get back in shape. And same is true with your brain.
Absolutely. Having that prevention and being ahead of the curve, doing all the right things. It's so much more. I'll go back to the effortless and with ease. When we're on the right side of health, everything else would fall into place. And we're going to go into wrap up mode. And I get to ask my favorite question to wrap things up. But before we go in there, I'm looking at my list of questions. My goodness, Patrick, I've barely scratched the surface. So before we go into the wrap up mode, is there an important question that you and I haven't yet covered that you'd like to get out there?
Well, I think we've covered a lot of things. I think the biggest question is, can they do something right now? And they can. You can start taking action right now to have a better brain and a better life. You don't have to wait for somebody to diagnose you or tell you something's wrong. That there are things available. And if they want to take the next step, they can download the app. They don't have to have the headset to get results. The headset amplifies those results. So they can download that for 14 days and do their own in one study, the study of one, see how it works for you, and report back your sleep, because 90% of people say they had their best night's sleep during that 14-day trial.
Absolutely love that. And again, Deep Nation, all of this is going to be in the show notes. It'll be a point and click. And so why not get the app, try it out for a couple of weeks, see how it goes. And if you have to be having a wearable, you'll see for yourself, okay, how's my sleep doing? How's my deep sleep, my REM sleep, all of that other good stuff. And we'll talk more about that when we do wrap up. So that said, it's our tradition here on the Deep Health Podcast, Patrick. It's my privilege, my honor, where I ask each guest the same question. It's a fun one. Let me set this up for you. When you think of the movie Back to the Future, you have that magical DeLorean car that will take you to any point in time. So Patrick, it's tomorrow morning. This is the fun part. You look outside your window. Not only is the DeLorean car curbside, the door is open, waiting for you to hop on in, which you do. And you're now going to go to any point in your life. Patrick, as a young child, a teenager, whatever point in time it would be, what would you tell your younger self in terms of life lessons or life wisdom? Or, hey, Patrick, do this, but don't do that. What would it sound like?
I really wouldn't change anything because I wouldn't be where I am right now without all those mistakes. But if I had to choose a time and place, I would go back to the time we invented the technology and explain it differently, because I didn't know what I did. We didn't have all the technology to prove it out. So we were explaining it totally. If I went back now, I'd cringe at the way we were talking about it. It worked, but it was like we sounded like babbling idiots, but now we have science to back it up. I would go back and change that scenario.
And if you were to encapsulate that into a sentence for your younger self, what would that sentence be? What would it sound like?
Don't worry about it. Science is going to prove this out. Let their experiences prove it to themselves. You don't have to explain it to them.
Absolutely love that. And, it goes back to the bigger thing that oftentimes in our minds, we make it so much worse than what it is. Hey, don't worry about it. It's all going to work out. Or going back to what you and I were speaking about earlier. Hey, you're exactly where you need to be. You're at the right place at the right time. The universe, God, spirituality, it's got your back. Just do what you do best. Absolutely love that. And Patrick, someone in Deep Health Nation, they have a question for you. They want to speak to you. Perhaps they would like, hey, I want to introduce this to my entire company or my leadership team. Where would be the best place online for someone to reach you?
They can go to drpatrickporter.com. I have a form there. They can get to me and that'll email me and my assistant and we'll get back with them. If they join trybraintap.com, they'll also get my company. So they can reach me that way too. They'll get an email with all the emails and all the numbers that they need to contact us.
Love it. And again, Deep Health Nation, we're going to have all that in the show notes. It's a point and click. It doesn't get any easier. Patrick, it's official. It's a wrap. Congratulations. And as we love to say here at Deep Wealth, may you continue to thrive and prosper while you remain healthy and safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So there you have it, Deep Wealth Nation. What did you think? So with all that said, and as we wrap it up, I have another question for you. Actually, it's more of a personal favor. Did you find this episode helpful? Have you found other episodes of the Deep Health Podcast empowering and a game changer for your journey? And if you said yes, and I really hope you did, I have a small but really meaningful way that you can actually help us out and keep these episodes coming to you. Are you ready for it? The dramatic pause. I'll just wait a moment. Drum roll, please. Subscribe. Please subscribe to the Deep Health Podcast on your favorite podcast channel. When you subscribe to the Deep Health Podcast, you're saving yourself time. Every episode automatically comes to you. And I want you to know that we meticulously craft every one of our episodes to have impactful strategies, stories, expert insights that are designed to help you grow your profits, increase the value of your business, and yes, even optimize your post-exit life and your life right now, whatever you want that to look like. And every time you subscribe and a fellow entrepreneur subscribe, it's a testament to how together, yes, we are changing the social fabric of society. One business owner at a time, one liquidity event at a time. So don't let the momentum stop here. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast channel. You'll never miss an episode. You'll be the first to hear from the top industry leaders, the innovators, the disruptors that are really changing and shaping the business world. And maybe you're commuting, maybe you're at the gym, maybe you're taking a well-deserved break that we spoke all about on this episode. The Deep Wealth Podcast, it's your reliable source for the next big idea that could literally revolutionize your business. So once again, please hit that subscribe button, stay connected, inspired, and ahead of the curve. And again, your next big breakthrough moment, it might just be one episode away. Maybe it was even this episode. So all that said, Thank you so much for listening. And remember, your wealth isn't just about the money in the bank, it's about the depth of your journey and the impact that you're creating. So let's continue this journey together. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for listening to this episode. And as we love to say here at Deep Wealth, may you continue to thrive and prosper while you remain healthy and safe. Thank you so much. God bless.